Babe, there's something different about my mango pineapple smoothie.
Really? My caramel frappe tastes fine.
Nah, something's definitely different.
No difference? Other than I got them for half off because I ordered on the app.
Well, that explains it.
Explains what?
How things seem to taste so much better when you're getting a sweet deal.
Okay.
Right now at Mickey D's, get 50% off any size McCafe beverage when you order through the McDonald's app.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Limited time only at participating McDonald's. Valid one time per day. Visit McDonald's app for details. Download and registration required.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino online.
I was only playing for fun, so winning was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's favorite free online social casino. You too could have the chance to win life-changing cash prizes. Absolutely anybody could be like Mary. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and play for free now. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of the winner.
The year was 1987. In Bedford, Ohio, a high school junior who had never played sports was invited to a drug awareness retreat at a local recreation center. During a break in the retreat, he'd walk over to a basketball and a hoop and begin to shoot baskets. When he got home from the retreat, he told his mom, "I think I want to play basketball." His mom simply said, "Well, then watch games on TV." From that retreat to this very day, that kid from Bedford, Ohio, has loved the game of basketball. He would lay in his bed at night and listen to the voice of Joe Tate in games on AM radio. When games were on local TV, he would watch them too. He would study the players and their moves. They were his coach. The TV was his practice gym. There was one player that he really liked, a point guard. He identified with that player, and although he was a far better shooter, maybe the best shooter ever, that player was Mark Price. That kid from Bedford, Ohio, was me. Today I have the absolute honor to interview one of the few heroes I have in my life. I use the word hero very carefully. I am particular about who I would give that label. Today, I get to interview a man of faith, a man respected by fans, not only in Cleveland, but across the NBA landscape. Today, I get to interview a player that represented Cleveland in an amazing career with our hometown Cavaliers. My guest today is my new friend, one of my favorite few heroes, and former Cleveland Cavaliers guard, Mark Price.
Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. My name's Corby LaCroix, and the song you're hearing right now is called Great and Mighty One, available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your music. But for now, recording from the Unscripted studio at the Junction in Old Hilliard, here's your host and my friend, Aaron Conrad.
Great Redeemer, God of grace.
All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted from my studios here at the Junction in Old Hilliard. Corby, thank you for the introduction on audio, as always. Wow. This one's been planned for a while. It's been teased for a while, and it is not often you get to introduce and interview one of your heroes. So let me just go ahead and let my guest introduce himself, and then we will literally go from there. Who is my guest today? Mark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Mark Price, and obviously I played for the Cavs for 9 years in the 80s and 90s, and I'm looking forward to doing the podcast here with Aaron today.
Mark, I could literally, I have so many notes in front of me, and people that know me know I'm unscripted as always. I could go through your resume, but it would take time, and I don't want to take time because you're a very busy man, and I don't want to take your time. But let just a few: 4-time NBA All-Star, All NBA First Team, 3-time NBA All-Star Third Team, 2-time 3-point shooting contest champion. Goodness, 50, 40, 90 club, number 25 retired by the Cavaliers. I'm just going to stop there because we literally go look at Wikipedia and you can get all Mark's stats. If y'all don't know who he is, I can't help you. Like Mark Price, I'm pretty sure anybody listening to this, anybody watching this knows who Mark Price is. But man, let's start with the very first thing I could think of is this. With the 25th pick in the second round of the 1986 NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Mark Price, guard, Georgia Tech. Let's start there. I know we want to talk about some Georgia Tech stuff in a minute because there's an article that I found, like I literally have in my basement. I wish I could have had it and I could post it. But let's start with the 1986 NBA draft. Second round, Mark Price to the Dallas Mavericks, which very quickly, was that draft day? You'll have to explain this. So was that draft day? When did the flip come? Because we all know you didn't even put on a Mavericks uniform. You started playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's go back right there and we'll start there.
Well, just a little bit of a backdrop, but going into that draft, and it was a little bit different time. There was only 24 teams in the league. Right. And so I was a little ticked, honestly, between you and me.
Okay.
I felt like I should have been a first round pick. Matter of fact, it was funny because the Atlanta Hawks, I think they had pick 19 or 20 or something sitting right there. I mean, they'd had me right in their backyard and they punted and passed on me. And it's funny because Dominique Wilkins is a good friend of mine. And every time I see him, he just like starts going crazy. Like, I cannot believe they passed on you. It would have been so great to play together. But so I was a little disappointed that the Hawks didn't take me at like 20. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching these guys, different guys that I'd played against. And I won't throw names out because I don't want to,
right,
hurt anybody's feelings. But a bunch of dudes that I just knew I was better than were getting picked ahead of me. And the biggest reason, just like my whole career and my whole basketball life, I just didn't pass the eye test, I guess. They couldn't get past what I looked like. I mean, I was 5'11", 175 pounds. Although I kind of dominated the ACC for 4 years, that's still, and all the guys that I kind of outplayed in college were getting drafted ahead of me.
Yeah.
And so I'm not claiming to be a brain surgeon by any means here, but I, just doing the math, I was like, okay, I'm better than them in college, but I'm not going to be better than them in the NBA.
Right.
It didn't compute to me, but a lot of the NBA back then just kind of, I don't know. I reminded them, I guess, too much of guys like Kyle Macy or John Sunbold. And what I think a lot of people didn't understand was that I was a lot faster, quicker. I had a lot more to my game than those guys did. Those guys were great shooters, and I was a good shooter and a great shooter as well. But I had so much more to my game that I think everybody missed on for some reason, except the Cavs. I mean, and it's funny because they had really worked it to get me. They loved me. They were going to, I know Wayne Embry, who was coming over to the Cavs at the time from Indiana. And I know Wayne took a lot of flack because Indiana wanted me at, like 26 or wherever their pick was going to be. And Wayne obviously knew that. And so somehow when he got to Cleveland, he worked a deal and got me and traded me for $100,000 to the Dallas Mavericks.
Really? So there weren't players involved. There wasn't a player to be named later. There wasn't picks. It was $100,000, Mark. Is that right?
Yeah, that shows you what everybody thought of me coming out.
Wow. Wow.
And so, I grew up in Oklahoma for those, people that really know my background. And so I was kind of jacked because Dallas was about the closest place to Oklahoma. And so I was like, okay, the Mavs, that's kind of cool. And then 30 minutes later, I get a call from my agent. He goes, don't worry about Dallas. You're not going to Dallas. You're going to Cleveland. You just got traded. And I laugh, and I told this story many times. And I literally pulled out my United States map to try to find out where Cleveland was. That's how much on the radar they were for me at the time. Of course, the franchise at that point in time was not in real good shape. But the start over with Wayne Embry, Lenny Wilkins, and then that 86 draft was what turned everything around.
So, and I want to get to the 86 draft because it was important for Cleveland, as you know, obviously, as you know. But for those of us that were fans, the 86 draft changed everything. I think for the entire Cavaliers organization, it changed everything. But and I apologize, my microphone and my headset just went out, so hopefully this is going to still play well. But so how different, gosh, I literally have pages of questions for you. How different was it now today when you watch the NBA draft? I mean, you got the green room, you got TNT, you got TBS, you have all these channels, and you have all this ESPN coverage, and you have social media and all this stuff. Like, how different was it for you in 1986? Where were you when you found out you got drafted by the Dallas Mavericks and then traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers? Like, where were you? Were you at the draft, or were you just at home waiting on a call, or what?
No, I was actually in my living room at my house I grew up in Enid, Oklahoma, with my family, just watching the draft on TV like everybody else. It wasn't, it was a different era back then. We didn't have, okay, this team call, you just kind of didn't know what was going on. So I'm sitting there watching, like I said, I'm watching guys go at 19, 20. My name still hasn't been called. And I'm sitting there getting a little ticked off inside, just going, what's going on? And so I actually go up to leave right at the end of the first round's over. And I go to use the restroom, and I come back, and my family goes, well, you just got drafted. Is
that right? So did they find out on TV, Mark? Is that how that happened?
Yeah, found out on TV. Didn't get a phone call, didn't get anything. So it was, it was different, but that was my draft day experience. I didn't have 5 cameras from ESPN, sitting in my living room with me or anything like that. So, just kind of just watching the draft like everybody else.
And there's so many questions I have for you, because I know you've coached, and again, my microphone and headset are back now, so whatever. Anyway, it's so fitting that this would happen. Welcome to Unscripted. So unbelievable so it was just such a different time. And I think I have a question for you later with coaching college and, just the transition you've seen. You and I both have kids that have now played and been recruited, and obviously yours have a little bigger name than mine. But at the same time, like, you've been through that. So let's get to that in a minute. But all right. So 1986 happens. Before we get to that, let me put a pin in that really quick, because you and I shared some emails, and I wanted to share with you a story. I literally, somewhere in my basement, I have a shoebox that has a Xerox copy of an article from your time at Georgia Tech. I'm sure you remember this article because it was written on you. It was an article from Sports Illustrated about you and a guy named Bruce Dalrymple, who was your teammate at the time. You also played with John Salley, who played in the NBA. Y'all had a great Georgia Tech basketball team at the time, but I copied that because I was trying to figure out who this guy Mark Price is, and I was just getting to understand. And people who heard the introduction know my story and connection to you as far as my fandom of you. But that article always struck me because it was talking about 2 different sides of the tracks. And it was talking about how Bruce was on, a completely different trajectory, life, all those things. And your life are very different. Do you remember the article? And I'm sure you do.
Yeah,
right?
It really was a cool article that Sports Illustrated did. It was going into my senior year, Georgia Tech. We had kind of similar to what happened in '86 when I went with the Cavs, a total rebuild thing. I mean, Georgia Tech basketball was terrible when John Salley and I showed up in 1982, and then 3 years later, we win the ACC championship, and we've added these players, Dalrymple, Dwayne Farrell, who played in the NBA for a long time as well. And so we go into my senior year preseason ranked number 1 in the country. And so we were getting all this attention, and Sports Illustrated called, and Bruce and I were considered one of the best backcourts in the nation at that time. And Bruce was from New York City. He was a city kid, and I was from Enid, Oklahoma, this country kid, and they had this idea, the opposite sides of the track kind of deal. And,
right.
And it was a really pretty cool article, just kind of showed even though we came from dramatically different backgrounds and our life experiences, yet we had this chemistry together on the court while we were in school that was just amazing. And so it was really, really a neat article. And I would encourage people, if you can find it archived anywhere, to read it, because it was really well done, and really got a sense of, it was, two guys that were totally different, and yet we were able to, come together and be one of the best backcourt, what I felt was the best backcourt in college at that time.
And I love that article because literally that was what connected me to you, because there's a picture, if I remember correctly, like I said, I have the Xerox copy in my basement somewhere. There's a picture of you, and I believe it's your family, and they're standing on a platform in a church somewhere singing. And I'm like, man, this guy, like, I was just becoming a child of faith. So you and I are a few years separated. I was just understanding my faith journey and becoming a Christian. And I'm like, here's this guy that kind of looks a little, we don't look anything alike now, but at the time, at this time I was looking for heroes. And when I looked to you, I said, this is a guy that can be a hero of mine. He's a Christian. He loves basketball. He's really good. And there's this article that just tells me about where he kind of grew up and who he is. So let's start with that, because I think the foundation of your faith is going to be important as we walk through everything else. So let's talk about your faith a little bit. And I appreciate so much that when I reached out to you and we talked about this, you said, hey, I definitely want to talk, about my faith. So can you share just your faith journey? Where did it start? Because I think it's the foundation of who you are. You mentioned it, your speech with the when they retired your jersey. You said that, like, I just watched it again today. There's very little that you said, but what you did say was about your faith. So can we talk about your faith?
Yeah, I was blessed to have two Christian parents, and I was raised in the church. It was, I was one of those kids. We were in church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. My family also sang. I had two brothers. My dad, we sang gospel music. My mom was a piano player, and she played piano for us, and so we sang at church. I grew up. It was just music was just a big part of our family, as well as basketball. And my dad was a coach as well, and so basketball and music and the church that was my life background growing up. And even though I was in the church all the way growing up, it wasn't until my teenage years that I really began to seriously kind of consider my faith and where that was at. And I think people that have grown up in a Christian home can understand this. Other people maybe not so much, but I think sometimes when you grow up and it's just something that you do as a family, sometimes your own personal relationship with God can kind of get lost in that, because it's just kind of, oh, I'm part of the family. This is what we believe, blah, blah, blah. But I began to really study God's word more and more as I got into my teenage years. And I began to realize that I wasn't so sure that my faith was my personal faith and trust in Christ. And so really at the age of 17 is when I cemented that and just, put my faith fully in trust in Jesus Christ, who died for my sins and gave my heart to him. And so that's when, it really kind of, my faith really took off. And even though I always believed in God and, like I said, grew up in church, it wasn't until those teenage years that I was like, really understood what it meant to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And so, it really changed everything in my mind, my heart. And for those that have had that experience of putting their faith in Christ, understand that. And up until that point in my life, really, I tell people this, basketball was really the God of my life. I thought, man, if I can ever get good enough to go to college and get a scholarship, and, then that's going to be it. And, but, as I began to start having those successes, in basketball at an early age, and, even going into high school and being one of the top players in the state and all this other stuff, starting to be recruited by schools, I still felt like there was something missing, I had to go out and play well or win a game to get that feeling again. And that's when I really started searching for what the real meaning of life is all about. And so when I did put my faith and trust in Christ, I mean, I gave him my basketball, I gave him my whole life, and do with it what you will, to the Lord. And even if that means taking it away, which, I mean, I was that serious about my faith. And, but it was amazing because, I mean, God just, it just shot, my game just took off to a whole nother level. And I know from being a child of faith that, I mean, the reason that was happening wasn't for me, it was for his purpose.
Yeah.
Because I had a story to tell. And by being a good basketball player, people would ask me to come talk or come speak. And I would be able to share my faith and people would listen because, I was such a unique story in the fact of, just like I said, I never passed the eye test. I mean, even to this day, when I meet people, I thought you'd be bigger, or whatever. Right. And I'm taller than you. I could have been an NBA player,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I get that a lot, but it was like, I think, and you read all through the scriptures, and it's God doesn't use the obvious people to make a difference, because it's about him and sharing his glory. And I mean, if I'd have been 7 feet and could jump 40 inches, I mean, people would say, well, how's he doing that? Say, well, he should be good. He's 7 feet, 40 inch vertical leap. But they're like, this dude's 5'11", 175 pounds. He shouldn't be able to do what he's doing out there. And then then I get an opportunity to really share my story. And so I have no doubt that my success was way more about what God wanted to do with my life than any plans that I could have made for myself.
This is going to be over the top, but I feel like you're a modern day David. You were a modern day David in the 80s and 90s. David didn't have, you and I are both people of faith. I mean, David was a guy that they overlooked, and he went out and slayed Goliath. And I think that's what people love about you, Mark. Honestly, that's what I myself love about you. You were 6 foot, 100 whatever pounds, and you were all of us. You were the kid in the driveway. You were the kid that was just getting started. I think that's what Cleveland, I know you mentioned this as well in your retirement speech or the celebration. Cleveland works really hard, and I think they appreciated a guy that didn't roll out of bed and was just blessed. He worked really, really hard. And so I think what I want to say in all that is that God absolutely used all of your story for guys like myself in Cleveland that looked at you and said, this is who I want to become. This is because it taught us hard work. It taught us faith. It taught us the fact that faith is hard, and you're not always going to be whoever. Sometimes you're David, and you got to go out and you got to slay Goliath. And so let me let's start with another thing. 1986 draft. And I don't want to transition because I think we're going to thread this faith conversation throughout everything we talk about today. I think the 1986 thing happens. So that draft, Doherty, Harper, Hot Rods in the Wings, Johnny Newman, right? Is that all? Is that everybody?
Yep, that's right. Of course, so we got Elo later in that year,
right?
Was added to that as well. But that's another story when I had an appendix taken out. So that was another God story that ended up bringing a guy in during that time that we ended up becoming best friends.
I was gonna say he's a brother of yours, right? So you guys went arm in arm in this, but the 1986 draft changed the culture and complete landscape for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's, I think, right about the time that I picked up watching the Cavaliers. And you and I exchanged some email. So Ron Harper, I just got to mention this. In 1987, I don't know, at some point during his rookie year, he steals the ball from Barkley. And I wish this was on YouTube. I swear I've searched it. I tried to tell my son about it. I have a VHS tape in my basement. I don't even know if I try to play it, it'd probably break because it's so old. But I have a VHS tape of Ron Harper stealing the ball from Charles Barkley after a rebound, doing a 360 over Dr. J. That was, do you remember that, number one? And second of all, was it the most incredible layup you've ever seen in your life?
Well, it was definitely one of them for sure. But, you know, I would say it shocked me, but Ron would do stuff like that every day in practice. I mean, he was just a very, very talented, very unique player. I loved playing with him. I was, one of those that just was heartbroken when they traded him and left.
Same.
We were just, our games fit so well together, and he even still, Ron tells people, I mean, he won championships with the Bulls and the Lakers and whoever else he played with, but he'll flat out tell people his favorite team was the Cavs team that came in together there. We just we had something special going on.
Mm-hmm.
I just hate that we weren't able to finish it off.
And no disrespect to Danny Ferry. I'm a Carolina guy, but I had a little keychain. I don't know if you remember back when the days when they had these little keychains of guys with uniforms on, and it was like Cavs and whatever, and we'd all wear them in college, and they hung out of our pocket and whatever else. Anyway, I had one, and I threw it across the room the day they traded Ron Harper because I was so mad. I loved Ron Harper. No disrespect to Danny Ferry, but you and Danny Ferry ended up being very good friends. In fairness, you all became very good friends.
Yeah, I mean, Danny was, Danny was a very hard worker. We became close while we were teammates. But I mean, the bottom line was he wasn't Ron Harper, and
right.
it was a tough situation for everybody.
Yeah.
It was tough for Danny. A lot of people want to blame whatever. I mean, it wasn't Danny's fault. I mean,
right.
he got put in that situation, and it was just it was a mistake. By I think most the people that made that probably look back and say it was a mistake, but at the time, they were hoping maybe Danny was the next Larry Bird or whatever. But we already had those three big guys already, and I felt like it was kind of crowded, and I think Danny really wasn't able to transition to like a three, three spot that I think they initially thought maybe he could be a 3-man, aka Bird style.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out. But like I said, I did my best while Danny was there to keep his head up and think, because it was rough on him at times, the fans and other things, the expectations and the contract that he got, all those things. How professional sports work,
right?
And, it was unfortunate, but through that, I felt like Danny handled it as well as you possibly could. He continued to work hard every day and to do his best for the Cavs.
And I think he transitioned well. I mean, it was a date and time. Now, today's Danny Ferry would probably transition very well to the NBA, honestly, with the 3-point shooting bigs. But, Danny wasn't that kind of player. So anyway, the 86 draft changed the landscape for the Cavaliers. You changed the landscape. And all of a sudden, the Cavaliers became a force in the NBA. I think, honestly, and I think at some point we're going to, here in a minute, we're going to talk about, a moment that I think most Cavaliers will always remember with heartbreak. But I think, you all, look, at the end of the day, you became a very good team. And it was the chemistry of that team. I think you always missed a small forward. If you always had a 3, that was the missing piece. Was no disrespect to, the guys that they tried to plug in, but you had your point guard, you had your guard, you had your center, you had your forward, you had Hot Rod off the bench. You guys were really, man, that team was stacked. But it was, then we came across the bad boys and things like that. So let's transition, because I think the best year you guys ever had was unfortunately, was when the shot happened, right?
Right.
A lot of people ask me, hey, you got to ask them about the shot. I think we could take a different let's not talk about the shot. The shot happened. It broke all of our hearts. I'm sure it broke your hearts. As a man of faith, the shot happens. It broke all of our hearts. I assume at some point you turned to your faith for healing, because, at the end of the day, let me ask you this, Mark, first. Do you believe if the shot doesn't happen, let's say Michael Jordan misses, do you think you would have won the championship that year? And that's a tough question because there's still the playoffs, but do you think you were the best team in basketball? There was no other team like the Cleveland Cavaliers in that year.
Well, I have a little bit different take on the shot. Everybody wants to, like you said, focus on the shot. And that's obviously a disappointing moment. Mm-hmm. But Michael Jordan was obviously great player, and great players make great shots in situations. My disappointment in that whole was we were so much of a better team than Chicago.
Oh, unbelievable. 0-6 during the regular season, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. We beat them 6 times pretty handily during the regular season, and we weren't healthy going into that. I mean, I had to sit out the last game of the season that year because of a bad hamstring, and to the point where they didn't feel like it was best interest for me to play in game 1 of that series, and they took that game from us. A lot of it because I didn't play. And then, I'm kind of dragging my leg through the rest of the series. Larry wasn't super healthy. We just had a lot of kind of injury issues there that kind of kept us from being who we were. But even still, we're down 2-1 going to Chicago Stadium for game 4. Yeah. And we got to win that game or it's over. And we do. I mean, as banged up as we were, we go into Chicago Stadium, win game 4, and bring it back to Cleveland. And the way I look at it, I mean, as banged up, and they still had to hit a miracle shot to beat us. That's how good we were. And so my disappointment, more than anything, is that we just.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino online.
I was only playing for fun, so winning was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's favorite free online social casino. You too could have the chance to win life-changing cash prizes. Absolutely anybody could be like Mary. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and play for free now. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of the winner.
Sports are easy to disagree on. Let's see what happens when sports talk hosts talk about something they agree on.
No, hold on. I'm saying drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds.
Well, I disagree. I think drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds.
Come on, man. Wait, I think we're saying the same thing.
Oh, so what do we do now?
Everyone agrees that drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings by new customer surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary.
Had really bad luck with injuries, timing of that. And so much of the time, the thing that hurt us more than anything else is we just weren't healthy when we needed to be healthy, and weren't able to show our best when we needed it because of that. So, but I mean, I still look back at those series with fond affection. I mean, those series were just phenomenal. I mean, every game seemed to go down to the wire. I mean, It was just like 2 heavyweights battling it out. I mean, it was so, through it all, I think we get slighted quite a bit. I don't think people, because we lost those games or weren't able to get past Chicago. Yeah. But I think we don't really get the due that team deserves, because we were really, really good. And trust me, nobody wanted to play us.
Yeah.
Sure.
I could tell you the city of Cleveland, and I literally can't believe I'm going to correct one of my heroes, but I'll tell you the city of Cleveland absolutely will never forget how good those teams were. I mean, I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody in the city of Cleveland when we say we know how good those teams were. They were so good. And if you know basketball and you go back and watch, those teams were built perfectly for the NBA at that time. Yourself splitting the double teams, you had 2 bigs, you had shot blockers, you had shooters. Those teams were designed and built perfectly for that run. And it just, you mentioned injuries, another year, was it the next year or the year before that when you didn't you get a concussion from Rick Mahorn?
Yeah.
That knocked you guys off course. You were the engine, and I think you mentioned this a little bit. You set out game 1. You were the engine that made the Cavaliers run. I don't even know at that point who your backups were. I don't know that well enough because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do know that you were the engine that fed Doherty, that fed Nance, that fed Hot Rod off the bench. Like, without you running the show as a point guard, those Cavalier teams did not work. And so, most people knew if they could take out Mark Price or, again, concussion from Rick Mahorn, now the Cavaliers are not running like they should. And again, I that's no disrespect to whoever your backup was at the time. It really isn't.
It's true. I think somebody showed me a stat one time, and I can't remember where I saw it, but someone said, like, while during my time with the Cavs, when I played, we won like 60 to 70% of our games.
Mm-hmm.
When I didn't play, we won like 30% of them. And so, I guess however you add up impact, or, I know everybody's into analytics and all
Right.
this, but to me, that's as big an analytic as you can get. When this guy plays, they win. When he doesn't play, they lose.
Pretty simple, right?
That's just was kind of the way I looked at things. I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm not overly complicated, but more than anything else, I was about winning, and that's all I really cared about. All those guys with those Cavs teams, Larry, Brad, Hot Rod, Craig, Ron. I mean, when he was with us, each and every one of us, we went into each and every game not thinking, okay, can I get my 30 points or whatever?
Right.
It was like, where do we have the advantage? Larry's got the advantage tonight. We're going to feed Larry. His guy can't guard him. And so it was Larry's night to have 25, 30. And we were all just happy and fine with that, because we were just about winning. And we just all understood, because, I'm a big believer that, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're winning, like, and I tell people all the time, 2 or 3 times while I was there, we had at least 2 or 3 guys named to the All-Star team. And that's, and none of us were, that was not the fan vote either.
Mm-hmm.
That was the other coaches voting the reserves, which to me meant more, because they were like, these guys need to be on the All-Star team. But it was because we were winning, and that doesn't happen. And I hear people talking about, the current Cavs situation a lot, or things like that. And they got was it the All-Star game in Cleveland this year or something like that? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, Colin Sexton or whatever, they need to get to. And I'm like, well, if they want to get to the All-Star game, they need to start winning.
Right.
Because it's like, that's just the way it is. And so, but so much today, and that's a subject for another time, is you get the cart before the horse situation. So many times guys are out trying to get the individual stuff rather than focusing in on, hey, we got to be about winning. That's what we're being paid to do here as professional basketball players. And how can we come together as a group and do that?
And I just can't say it enough. It was the perfect mix. As someone who's now watched basketball because of someone like yourself, who became my hero. I've watched basketball now for years, and that team was just so good. That's what's so hard, I think, as a Cleveland fan, is we know how good that team was. And Clevelanders always wanted a hero, and you became one of those heroes. But I think that team, we look at it and we say they were so good, and they were good guys. I think that's the difference, because I think the next era that came along was the bad boys, and then we've gone where we've gone from there. No disrespect to Detroit, but you guys were the good guys. Like, you were good guys, Brad Daugherty, Larry Nance, just good guys, the kind of guys you want your kids to look up to. And then, and then the bad boys came in, and it was fighting, and it was, rough, and then the league became very physical. Let me ask you this, because the league did become very physical and changed in today's NBA, how much do you think you would average?
Well, it's, who knows, but
right.
It would have been a lot more than I play.
Right.
It's just,
it's a different league.
It's funny. I tell people all the time, they start asking me how I enjoy the game now. And 2 times while I played, I led the league in 3-point attempts per game at 5.
Right.
Think about that. I led the 5 attempts, 3-point attempts per game, led the league.
And now Curry's taking 30 a game?
That's like
20?
a first quarter stat.
Exactly.
I'm like, if Steph hasn't gotten up 5 in the first quarter, he's upset probably,
Right.
So, it's different. for sure. The game obviously is changed, and it does that. But people ask me about it all the time. And I was a 3-point shooter, but honestly, sometimes I get a little bored watching the games right now because they're jacking up 93s a game between the two teams, and I don't know. I just kind of miss the all-round game. I was so blessed to play in an era that just had so many fantastic big men. I mean, it seemed like every team in the league, particularly in the East, just had an all-star. Like, you throw it in, he's scoring if you don't double team. You know what I mean?
Right. It was a big man era.
Yeah, it was a big man era, and so there was so much more inside out, outside in. You know, the pick and roll stuff, rolling to the basket. Stuff you just don't see hardly at all today. And, you know, it's just, I miss that, just that kind of the all round game. And I tell people all the time, if I was in charge of the basketball universe, you wouldn't see a 3-point line until probably your second or third year in college, because I just think it stunts the development of these kids today, because that's, and I speak from experience because I you know, I hold basketball camps and things like that. And I walk in the first day of camp, and literally you'd think there was like, you know, a disease or something inside the paint, inside the 3-point line, because every kid is outside the three, just jacking them up.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm notorious for my first day speech being, when I walk in here tomorrow, I better see some one-handed shots under the basket, getting warmed up, learning how to shoot the ball, and say, we'll get to the 3-point line. But I mean, I just grew up. I never had a 3-point line till, you know, we experimented it in college 1 year. That's it. So, you know, when I was developing my game, if I was open from 10 feet, I took that shot. If I was open from 8 feet, or, you know, the floaters, that's how I learned all those shots. And then, you know, if I was open from 25, I would shoot it. So I wasn't constantly like my head on a swivel. Where's the 3-point line? I mean,
right.
You know, and so I just think it's really hurt some of the development of guys now, because I mean, it's pretty much layup, 3, or a free throw. That's all. That's all you see. So you know, whenever I see a guy get creative and shoot a mid-range shot, I kind of get more excited about that than anything.
You know, Mark, I think you and I are the old guys in the front yard yelling at the cloud, because I agree. I agree with you, my friend. I agree with you. I grew up in an era of watching Cavaliers basketball, watching Dean Smith and UNC basketball, and Dean Smith, up until Roy Williams retired last year. I think this year Hubert Davis is going to take Carolina basketball in a different direction. But up until even last year, Roy Williams is you and I. And that belief that you play through the bigs. The big goes down, he gets on the block, you feed the big, he kicks it out. But, you know, the game has changed, and you and I can probably literally talk all day about how that's the era I grew up watching. That's the basketball I love, is people like yourself driving, kicking it into a big, or, you know, coming down, a big's on the post, you kick it in, you find your spot, he kicks it back out to you. Now you hit your 3. You don't just jack up a 3 at half court of the logo because you can. And anyway, a completely different rant, but I'm with you because I watched you play, and I watched North Carolina basketball. Those are the two things that taught me how to play basketball, was Dean Smith and his system, and you and the Cavs, you know, listening to Joe Tate on AM radio. So literally, I think we could probably talk about that all day. But that being said, let's transition again, if you don't mind. You have kids, and the kids have now become, they're in the recruiting process. One of them played at my favorite, North Carolina, tennis, right? And then I just found out today, I'm not gonna lie, I was doing my homework, and one of them played at Liberty. So my daughter wants to go to Liberty, and I was down there. What a gorgeous campus that is. Liberty's gorgeous. I mean,
great school and a beautiful campus. And
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So where are the kids?
Well, I have 4.
All right.
My oldest 2 are girls. My oldest daughter lives in Asheville, North Carolina. She's married. She's really my only one. My first one, she played some volleyball and stuff in high school, but she was my bookworm, and became a writer, and so she's married, living in Asheville, North Carolina. And then Caroline, my second daughter, who just got married a couple years ago, she did play tennis at North Carolina and won a couple national championships there. She was very, very good tennis player, one of the top recruited players in the country when she was coming out of high school. But she had a great career there, and now she teaches tennis and does those sort of things as well. And then my older son Hudson played college basketball. He's played his first 2 years at TCU, and he's about 6'6", 6'7". I wish I'd have had that size.
That's right. What would Michael Jordan say? The mailman was 6'6"? Yeah. Because somebody used to say when they asked how tall he was. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
He played at TCU for 2 years, and then he came and played his last 2 years for me when I was coaching at Charlotte.
Right.
And so that was a really neat time for us to get to spend together. And then my youngest, like you mentioned, he's been at Liberty the last 3 years, and he actually graduated in 3 years. And due to COVID things and different situations, he's had a couple years eligibility left, and he's like, well, might as well get my master's and go play ball somewhere. So he's playing a Division II school while he gets his master's over the next couple of years. Trevecca Nazarene,
absolutely,
there in Nashville, and Nashville's a really cool place. So I think he's going to enjoy these next couple of years, just enjoying playing hoops and getting more education. But they're all gone. They're all out of the house now. And although they come through and different transition times, we might have one of them living in the basement or so here and there. But for the most part, we're empty nesters, and we're enjoying that. Enjoying getting to do some things we wanted to do and haven't had time to do. And it's a good time of life, and chase the kids around and follow them and do what we can. So we're blessed. 4 great kids. We love them to death, and God's been good to us.
He has, and I think we've always. Again, we're all fans. I think that's the beauty of Cleveland is when you play for any Cleveland team, you become a part of us as a part of Cleveland. I think Cleveland's unique. And most cities will probably say that about their city, but I think Cleveland's very special, as you would probably agree. When you play there, you become a part of our family. The Price family, they're a part of our family, and we watch you all. And I've loved your adoration of your bride and your kids and all those things. And I follow you on social media, and you guys are fun to follow along and see what's happening. My son plays for Mount Vernon Nazarene, so I'm very familiar with Trevecca Nazarene as well. But all right, so. Really quick, let me touch on one thing, and you've been so gracious, man. I can't believe how fast the time's flying. I could talk to you for hours, Mark. Let me ask you one thing. You transitioned to college for just a minute. You had a cup of coffee in college. How different was it for you? We just had a conversation about bigs and the game and the changing of the game. And, you grew up in a time when there wasn't social media. You didn't post a 4-panel when you said, I'm going to attend the, Georgia Tech. And how hard was it for you? I know if I was in your seat, which I'm clearly not, but if I was, it would be really hard for me to transition to a coaching role in today's basketball. I would want bigs. I wouldn't want to be distracted by kids posting whether or not they visited and if they had this shoe and if they had this arena, right? So when you transitioned to college, how hard was that for you? And or was it a pretty smooth transition for you?
Well, I'd been at the pro level coaching for quite a while, and that opportunity came up to be a head coach, and I was really excited about it, and the opportunity to work with young people and young players. But there was definitely, you could definitely, with the whole social media thing, the stuff that goes on now, it's a different world. And in fact, and I've always I always felt like one of my strengths, the thing that allowed me to be successful during my playing careers, was that I was super focused on what I needed to do. Maybe because I had to work harder than everybody else. I didn't have a lot of the natural gifts that maybe other guys had. So for me to be successful, I had to be really focused. I had to be really, limit the distractions in my life. so that I could accomplish what I needed to accomplish. And I just feel like we live in a time now, it doesn't matter whether you're an NBA player or a college player. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
You're good.
But, with the internet and social media, and there's just so many distractions.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for kids to focus these days. At least it seems that way to me.
Yeah, I agree. All right. You have time for rapid fire?
Yeah, sure.
All right. I have five rapid fire questions. And the rule on Unscripted is if there's ever a question I ask you and you don't want to answer, you just say pass and everybody understands. Okay. All right. Number one, biggest shot you ever made in your life.
That's a good question. There was a lot of them.
First one that came to mind.
Biggest shot I made in my life. Probably my first NBA basket.
and who was that against?
I don't even remember, but I know it would have been the biggest shot because I'm in the NBA and
you're in the NBA. You made this show. You made it to the show, kid. You made it to the show.
And I just scored.
That's right. That's right. As a second round draft pick. Take that, everybody else. All right. Number two, if the shot misses, I think I already asked you this. If the shot misses, do you guys think you win the champion? Do you think you win the championship? Let's just play fun. You said there was a lot of injuries, and you know what, Mark? I don't think a lot of people even knew that. I didn't know that. I just know I watched a 5-game series and couldn't believe that Michael Jordan, a team that you guys were 6-0 against during the season. And I love Michael Jordan, but come on, at the end of the day, how did that happen? Well, now I think now the truth can be told. There was injuries. So, all right, no injuries, 6-0 versus if the shot misses, do you guys win the championship? You think?
I think we got a really good chance.
Absolutely.
To win the
Best
championship.
team in
so many different things that can happen.
Sure.
Right. You got to, and I said, you got to be good. You also got to have things go your way. But we were good. Let's just put it this way. We were definitely good enough to win it.
100%. Richfield Coliseum or Gund Arena? Now Rocket Mortgage, whatever it's called.
For me, Richfield. Just
so good.
I played most of my career there. It was just such a home court advantage. The other teams hated playing there, which I don't blame them. But
right.
We loved playing there. It was such a great. It got loud. It was, for me, it was Richfield.
Many a game at Richfield Coliseum. I love the access, how easily you could get home. Anyway, Richfield was fantastic. At any point in your NBA career, did you ever drive a minivan?
No.
Practice. No. Okay.
I did. I had a Suburban though.
All right. All right. So big enough, right?
I had to have a big enough car for 4 kids.
For your kids. Okay. Yeah, I just in my mind,
I vowed I would never have a minivan, so I just skipped it and went to the Suburban.
I don't even know if they had minivans in those years. Did they? Okay. All right. Because I just, in my mind, when I was putting out questions, I'm thinking I'd love to see Mark Price driving a minivan. I really would. On his way to practice. All right. This is going to be a tough one now. Today's NBA is about super teams, and this isn't about any player. We're not, whatever. If you could have, in your time in the NBA and, the culture being what it is today, if you could have made a super team and you had, all right, I'm going to meet up with X player and Y player, who would those two players have been to create a super team for you? Again, this is hypothetical. This, again, no judgment on today's current NBA.
Yeah. First of all, I felt like I played on a super team.
I agree with you, man. I do.
I just wouldn't have wanted to play with anybody else than the guys. Brad, Larry, that's my super team.
Yeah. It's funny because as I was writing the question, Mark, I honestly thought, gosh, I think he had a super team. We had a super team in Cleveland. You really did. It just didn't happen, unfortunately, because factors, right?
Yep.
Man. So where are you today? That's the last question I have for you. And I promise we're going to wrap. Where are you today?
My wife and I just moved back to the Georgia area, north of Atlanta, and for family reasons, her parents, and we have one of our daughters living in this area. Well, 2 of our kids living here now. So just trying to get situated, settled. I'm, transitioning. I'm trying retirement a little bit these last couple of years with the craziness of all that's happening around us. I'm kind of enjoying playing a lot more golf than I've ever gotten the opportunity to play, trying to enjoy life a little bit, but just do some things. My wife and I traveling some and doing some things that I haven't got to do in a long time or had the time to do. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. People ask me if I get back in coaching. If the right opportunity presented itself, obviously I love the game. I feel like I have a lot to give back to the game, but I'm not chasing after anything right now. If that's something God wants me to do, he's always provided for me in the past, and he'll provide that opportunity. But right now I'm happy, enjoying life, getting to spend time with my family and friends and do a lot of things that I've haven't had the time to do.
What I love, Mark, is I think you're getting to do what the things that are most important to you, and that's family and your faith and your time. And I know we've talked about your faith a lot in this, but I really want people to hear and understand that your faith is number one in your family. It's number one for you. And if not, go ahead and I'll probably put it in my post as well, but go back and watch the jersey retirement ceremony in Cleveland. There's a lot of things you could have said in that moment. And the thing that you talked about was your faith. And I appreciate that. As a guy looking for heroes, you were my hero. And I've told you that a few times now. And I've also told you thank you a bazillion times. I'm going to tell you a bazillion one. Thank you again. I have one thing. I wrote this down because I want to make sure I get it right. Let me go ahead and say this. And I don't feel equipped to be the guy to say this, but let me say this as we close. I think I speak for the city of Cleveland when I say thank you. I speak for players that had a dream when I say thank you. I want to speak for the kids in their driveway wearing that Mark Price jersey in Cleveland, Ohio, and across the NBA when I say thank you. I speak for a town that needed a hero. They needed heroes. I grew up there. Cleveland needed heroes, and you were one of those heroes, if not the hero. So thank you. And most of all, Mark, I speak for a kid from Bedford, Ohio, that was looking for a Christian role model. He was looking for a guy and learning the game of basketball. And I want to say thank you from literally from the bottom of my heart. I mean it so genuinely. Thank you. Anybody that knows me knows that you are truly one of my heroes. And I use that word very carefully. But this meant the world to me. You replied to a tweet, man. I don't know how that happened. I think I know how that happened. I think I want to thank God for the opportunity that you just replied to a tweet. And, thank you. This has meant the world to me.
Well, I appreciate that, Aaron. I'm humbled, but thankful that God would allow me to have impact on people's lives like you and other people when I played. That was why I did what I did. I didn't do it for me, whatever. I love the game of basketball, and I was blessed to be able to do something I love. God blessed me with opportunities to have impact on other people. And I love Northeast Ohio. I loved getting to play in Cleveland. It was the perfect city for me. Mm-hmm. The city in Northeast Ohio, just even to this day, whenever I go back up there, just treat me really, really special, and it just make my family as well. And, we thoroughly enjoyed my time there. We just felt like we were part of the community.
Yeah.
We went to church there. We lived there. We went to the grocery stores there. We lived in Hudson, Ohio, while we played in Richfield, and we just felt like we were part of the community. I just happened to have a different job on the at nights, than other people. And I'm like I said, humbled and grateful that I was able to bring joy to people's lives, and they could enjoy watching me play and our teams play, and that means the world to me. And I appreciate all your kind words, and really enjoyed our conversation. It's been great. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Mark. One further question. Did you cry when they won in 2016?
I didn't cry, but I was super, super happy. Just super, grateful for the city of Cleveland.
Yeah.
And in some crazy way felt like I was part of that process.
You were.
Help set the stage and the culture of expectation. I mean, that's one of the first things. I mean, players and coaches are like, you build up, but that's what it's all about. Before you can win it, you got to build up those expectations to win it. That people can believe that you're good enough to do that. And I felt like we set that table. And then obviously, LeBron James came to town and was able to get that thing accomplished. And it was very gratifying moment. I was sitting there watching it on TV when it happened, just like everybody else in Cleveland. But it was a fun night. 50, 60 years of waiting. I know it was a big weight lifted off the Cavs organization, and was super happy when it happened.
I could tell you guys did. You kind of fixed, and I wasn't a Cavs fan when there's a lot of things in it, a lot of history that we didn't go through. But I picked it up right when you guys picked it up, and have been a fan ever since. And to watch the foundation you all built in 96 or 86 with the draft, and then all those things and all the heartbreak and all that stuff, man, it's just life, right? Like it was just so amazing in 2016 to see it all finally come together, and to know it wasn't just for Cleveland. It was for players like yourself that invested and brought Cleveland basketball back. And like I said, that kid in the driveway, wherever that was, that those moments were for them. And I'm sure I don't feel worthy to speak for the city of Cleveland, but I'm pretty sure I speak for the city of Cleveland when I say that. Man, thank you, Mark. Honestly, biggest interview I've ever done, biggest honor of my life is this interview today. I'm so thankful for you. I have to share this really quick. All right, before we go, I've exchanged some domestic messages and emails. Man, last night, Mark Price tells me, "Hey man, we're going to be fine. It's just you and I talking." And like to have you tell me, "Hey, you're going to be fine. Don't worry, man. Don't be nervous." That was pretty special. So anyway, thank you, brother. You are, like I said, one of my few heroes, and I'm so thankful for you, Mark.
Well, I appreciate it, Aaron. I enjoyed being with you. All the best, and maybe we can do it again down the road sometime.
Open invitation for Mark Price. It's pretty much a gold ticket whenever you need it.
All right, bud. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Unscripted Podcast with your host, Aaron Conrad, from his studio at the Junction in Old Hilliard. Make sure to like, share, follow, and review on your favorite podcast platforms. Also, make sure to check out my song Great and Mighty One on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find your music. We'll see you next time on Unscripted with Aaron Conrad.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino online.
I was only playing for fun, so winning was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's favorite free online social casino. You too could have the chance to win life-changing cash prizes. Absolutely anybody could be like Mary. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and play for free now. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of the winner.